with Aloha Authentic.
Hui! And welcome to a very unique episode of Aloha Authentic with Kamakapili, Hawaii's only TV show where we feature our own local artisans and cultural practitioners and have them share the stories, the kauna, the hidden meanings of their work with you in the comfort of your home, with our communities here in Hawaii, but of course with everybody stretching across the globe. Now this episode is a very special one. For the first time ever, we're outside of the studio on location in the beautiful Kaneohe with the majestic and luscious Ko'olau mountain range behind us. And you're probably thinking, hey, that looks fake, but it ain't fake. It's so good that it looks fake, but it's a perfect backdrop and a perfect energy to speak about what our focus is on this month's episode. And it's about sacredness and sanctity, sacred stones. Back in February, the Mayor of Maui made a comment on the news that there's no such thing as sacred rocks. And in this episode, we take a tour around Oʻahu, stopping at various sacred sites and considered sacred for many reasons, and just trying to showcase and use that to prove the point that there is such thing as sacredness and sacred rocks. And it doesn't only fall in the category of religion, but it also falls under categories such as spiritual or culture. But most important to me is respect and aloha. The one reason I believe we all choose to call Hawaii our home is because of that special, unique feeling and energy of Hawaii. That's the sacredness and also that unique spirit that we all know as the aloha spirit. And to showcase that and to highlight that, that's the whole point that we're trying to do, because that within itself shows the energy and the fact that sacredness is alive. In this episode, there's many different stories from different backgrounds, from religious to culture. One thing we ask when you walk into these stories, especially when it comes to Hawaiian mo'olelo, is to keep an open book, because when it comes to Hawaiian stories, every family can say the same story in its own different way. And doesn't mean one is right or wrong, it's a different variation. It's kind of like dialects of a language. In Hawaiian language, we have examples. Up in Kauai speaks a whole different Hawaiian language dialect than people down on Hawaii Island do. So Hawaiian mo'olelo is the same way. Now the hopes with this episode is that it sparks interest within you to go around your hometown, your island, and find the different sites and stones that are considered sacred and find out why. And it's only to broaden your horizon and your awareness of what Hawaii consists of, what your home consists of. And that way you can turn around too and start educating your friends and family, and that creates a ripple effect within our own communities. And then eventually there are going to be way more people knowing the ancient culture, the ancient history, the ancient stories of Hawaii more than people do now. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the island of Oʻahu. So we're here at Kaupo, which is an old traditional fishing village on the east side of Oʻahu. If you know where Sea Life Park is, that's where I'm at. You can see Rabbit Island is right behind me. So if you know where this area is, you know about this pohaku. Now this pohaku is tilted, but in the past it actually was flat. There was another stone underneath it that kept it up. And it served as an altar for farmers who would offer awa to their shark god, who is known as Kamohoali'i. Now there's a fisherman in this area who would provoke all the farmers. What he would do is catch sharks, cut their tails off, throw them into the water next to this pohaku, and irritate the farmers like that. Now story shares that the Kamohoali'i, the shark god, he got all irritated with this, so he caught the fisherman one day. He ate him from the feet up, stopped at his butt because he smelled like doo-doo and nobody wants to eat that. So he stopped, and then he ended up showing himself to one of the farmers, and he said from this point on he will protect and make sure there's no shark attacks from Makapu'u all the way through Waimanalo. And if you actually look through history, there I don't really know of any shark attacks over here. So sacred stone. So now we're here at Makapu'u, directly across the street from Sea Life Park. There is a modern heiau that have been constructed. Back in 1993-94, I believe, there was a group of Native Hawaiians called the Children of Ku who had established this heiau when there was a housing protest going on in this location. So they built this heiau in dedication to their gods Ku, Lono, Kane, and Kanaloa. And their intention of setting these stones, even if it's not a traditional heiau, their intention of the stones being placed and the energy, the prayers, the chants, that mana that they put into the stones, that intention is to create a sacred area. So of course, the stones become sacred. Now, even though a lot of us don't continue to believe in that ancient style, ancient belief system, I give nobody, no matter what our beliefs are, to tell them that this isn't sacred. It's about respect, and it's about aloha, and that's what makes Hawaii different, no matter who we are. So this is sacred. So now we're at a place called Allen Davis. Traditionally, I believe the traditional name of this area is Ka'ili'ili, but please double check for me. I'm not too sure, but that there is a traditional name. This structure right here is called, or known as Pele's chair, but to old Hawaiians they referred it to as Kapalio Kamoa, which translates to the cliff of the chicken, because to them it kind of resembled a perching chicken. But this area is known as the area in Hawaiian stories that Pele had left Oʻahu and continued her journey, creating all the other islands to Molokaʻi, to Lanai, and then to Hawaiʻi Island. Pele is known in Hawaiian culture as the goddess of fire, the goddess of lava, the element of lava, creating the islands. So no matter what our beliefs and what island we live on, we are all affected by this element of lava, this element of Pele, because we are all able to live here today. So, and also in my family, I was also told that this is the location that Pele had arrived to Oʻahu. So when you talk about Hawaiian stories, you have to really keep open book because of traditions and family. So to me and to Hawaii, this is sacred. So now we're in Waikiki. Did you know that there's sacredness in Waikiki? There's a whole bunch of sacredness, but sometimes it's very hard to see. So let me share a little bit. This is what people know as the wizard stones, which is incorrect. There's no such thing as wizards in Hawaiian culture. This should be more appropriately known as the healing stones. They're 4 bell stones that come from the hillside of Kaimuki. Now bell stones are made up of a certain type of composite or a rock or crystal or something, so when you hit on it, it's supposed to ring like a bell, and they're actually very, very heavy. So even I'm wondering how it came from the hillsides of Kaimuki down here in Waikiki. It's kind of a question and a curiosity. But long story short, there's 4 healers that came from Tahiti to Hawaii a long time ago, and they transferred their powers into these stones. Each stone has a different name, and after that the story shares that they just vanished. So people refer to them as wizards because they do vanishing things like that, but actually they're healers. Long story, but these are sacred stones. So find out more. Okay, so also in Waikiki, Duka Hanamoku statue, something more modern, but don't we treat the Hanamoku statue or any of the statues of our ali'i or very iconic Hawaiians in our history as something of high up respect? Where do we get pissed off and get all mad if someone was to vandalize or someone to take the leis off a statue? So aren't we treating that with the sanctity of that we treat something else with? Isn't sanctity something where we give value to? So to me, and I know to a lot of Hawaiians, we would get so pissed off if someone was to vandalize this because it is sacred. It's sacred with the value that we instill within it. All that Duka Hanamoku had resembled, all that he was about, what he left behind, his legacy, all of that mana, that history, is all inside this statue, because of course that's what Duka Hanamoku represents. That's what this statue represents. So, sacredness in Waikiki. Now, again, we're still in Waikiki. There's so much sacredness in Waikiki. Here's another one that you probably passed by and never really realized. So this is at the corner of Kapahulu and Kalakaua, right across the street from Walls and Queens Beach, or what we call Queens Beach. It's an enclosement called Naivi Kupuna. And a lot of the bones from family members and families who were originally from Waikiki, during the whole construction and development stage decades, that a lot of the burials were uncovered, and the burial council had worked where they've been able to create this and enclose all those remains back in here. Some EV came back from Bishop Museum, but with this, the whole point was to keep the ohana and all their mana and their lineages and their legacies here. So of course, this encampment, all these stones that are used to complete this enclosement, this is all sacred. Sacred in Waikiki. Okay, so now we're in Aiea at a heiau called Keiva on the top of Aiea. And traditionally this was used as a healing heiau. They discovered in 1951, I believe, the remains of this heiau, where it was finally understood that this was used traditionally in the art of healing, from la'au lapa'au to lomi lomi and what have you. All of that art, that spiritual, traditional, sacred practice of healing. Not everybody could be a healer. You had to have a really strong connection with your na'au. It was a life practice. You spent your whole life being a master in what your art is. And in this sense, it was la'au. This place was full of la'au, and it still is. There's so much different plants and trees that we may not know is medicinal, but it has medicinal properties that was put here by God for us to use naturally. And today they take tours and stuff inside. People stand on rocks, which I personally don't think that is pono. That's not right. Because it's sacred. These are sacred stones. Keiva heiau in Aiea. Now we're here in Wahiawa. We want to come visit the healing stones of Wahiawa. Long story short, there are 2 stones that to the Hawaiian people had its own majestic healing powers. But they're also with other religious people, other pilgrims. There's an Irishman who had a dream, and he said the spirit of these pohaku had called to him, so he went to go and find these stones. And these stones belong down by Kukani Loko, I believe. So he went to go find them, and all these other pilgrims came, did their prayers and ceremony and stuff, ended up bringing these pohaku up into Wahiawa. 2 times, did they say, they brought it up, but the next day, the pohaku always ended up going back down to the original place. So they brought it up for a 3rd time. They created this Japanese-style protection ceremonial thing. The pohaku no longer are in there, but they would come here, and all types of religious believers would come in. They just had a special connection to this pohaku. No matter what the situation, it's back, I believe, at Kukani Loko. The Hawaiians have took it back for their own beliefs, but at the end of the day, it is sacred. Okay, now we stay all the way at Kaena, which is the most northern point of Oʻahu, closest to Kauai, where you can drive all the way through until you get to this yellow gate. Then you have to park and you'll walk all the way. Unless you have a key like that forerunner who just came through, then you're lucky. But if you walk this, I don't know, a mile, 2 miles, it takes you all the way to the point. And when you go out there, I would walk all the way out there, but I don't want to, so I'm not gonna go. But I'll paint you a picture. There's a big pohaku, a big stone out at the point, close to the point. That's I don't know the name of it, but it's referred to as a leina. And the leina in Hawaiian culture are spots that after a person would pass away, their spirit would jump into the afterworld. So there's leinas throughout the whole state at different points. Over here, there's one. And it's very big, and I believe it's more white than all the other pohaku, so it kind of stands out. But that definitely is very much of a sacred stone, a very big prominent part in Hawaiian spirituality of old Hawaii, and some of those who still believe today, sacredness. So now we're here at Queen Liliuokalani Cemetery and the church in Haleiwa town. Here in the cemetery, my tutu, she just turned 101. She's born and raised Wailua. A lot of our ohana are buried in here. A lot of her friends, when I took a stroll in her, she's pointing out all these people that she knew. All her friends are buried in here. Big people in Hawaiian throughout history. Kumuhula Daralupe Nui, his mama, very prominent in the art of hula, are buried in here. Wailua Sugar Mill, which was a humongous thing in its day. All the descendants, well, a lot of the descendants are buried in here. So graveyards, as mentioned yesterday, but Aina, it is very sacred. There's no such thing as sacred. And then, of course, like, I'm gonna pull it because the wind, but the church, the stones that are used to build the church, the space the church is built on, the cross itself, even though it might not be stone, it might be wood, but the cross itself is sacred. The original commandments were carved on 2 stones. Mahalo to those who pointed that out earlier today. That's sacred. So in Christianity, yes, there are a lot of sacred stones. Still in Haleiwa, but we're now at Lokoʻea Fish Pond. Now, Lokoʻea Fish Pond is known throughout history to provide the quality of fish. Lokoʻea is known as a pu'uone, or a fish pond that's near the shore, and you'll know why, because I'm parked right on the side of the road, and there it is. But for example, during the time of Kakuihewa, a ruler of all Oʻahu at one point, it is said in history that he sent his runners all the way over here to grab the ama or the mullet that he desired. And how awesome is this, that it said his runners were able to encompass the whole island 12 times in one day. I'm in Haleiwa. I started in Kaneo, no, where did I start? Wamanalo at 9 o'clock, it's 4:40, and I haven't even encompassed the island one time. But and all the pohaku inside the fish pond that it's used to make the fish pond, they're just as wonderful as the fish, because if it wasn't for the rocks, there would be no fish. So all the elements within a fish pond, they're just as sacred as what the final product is, which is the fish. And this fish pond was passed down and continues to be in royal hands and royal families. So Lokoʻea, sacred. Now we're at Kahana Bay on the east side of Oʻahu, and I'm going to stay in the front because it's really windy outside and the microphone's not going to work. But I'll turn the camera and hopefully you can see it. I know it's in the distance, but the first big mound going up the mountain, we know that as Crouching Lion. And it actually looks like a lion if you look from it at the front, but we're from the side view so you can't see. But in old Hawaiian stories, that's known as Kauhi'i Mako Kalani. And again, as mentioned before, with the Hawaiian stories, you got to keep an open book. Not one story is right or wrong. It's all the same. Different families, different variations, it's all okay. So this one story, Kauhi'i Mako Kalani, is a shapeshifter in Hawaiian stories, you know, as a kupua. And he was stationed as a watchman up over there, and he heard during Hi'iaka's journeys around the island, she's singing and whistling. He heard it, aroused him. He wanted to continue on her journeys with her and follow her. She didn't allow. He got mad. He tried to break free. He froze, only had enough energy and power to break until he looked like he was in a crouching position, and that's where he froze, and that's why it looked like that. It's sacred. It's Hawaiian stories. Now we're at Kualoa, and I believe this particular area is Hakipu'u. I may be wrong, but I do please ask to correct me. I appreciate everybody's comments. It's really starting a ball and a role of education and conversation. That's awesome. So leave them, please. Appreciate it. This island is Chinaman's Hat. We all know that as Chinaman's Hat. We've seen that painting with the old man eating the bowl rice, get the whales swimming around, and the island is his hat. Well, in old Hawaiian stories, the name of this island is Mokoli'i. Mokoli'i was a mo'o, or a lizard, a guardian. Not all mo'os are good, some are bad. This wasn't a really nice mo'o. Got into battle with Hi'iaka, as I previously mentioned about Crouching Lion. She traveled around. She got into battle, she defeated him, and through the tip of his tail, that's the tip of his tail, and it shows that his body actually goes up the mountain, and the name of this mountain is Kaneho'olani, which in Hawaiian stories is Pele's father. So there's a lot of sanctity, maybe not just in stones, but the moku, the rocks, and the mountains, of course, but the space. This is all sacred. So now we're here at Iolani Palace. Sacredness speaks for itself. The house and the residence of the royal families. Established by King David Kalakaua in 1882, this palace actually is the second version. The first original palace was demolished in 1874, which was named Haleali'i. But Haleali'i, which means the house of the chiefs, was renamed by King Kamehameha V to Iolani Palace in honor of his brother, King Kamehameha IV, Alexander Iolani Liholiho, who was the husband of Queen Emma, the founders of Queen Medical Center, and so much other aside from that. They have contributed so much to our Hawaiian community. So with that, aside from the palace and the stones, I mean, we had an incident a couple years back where the Hawaiians went and go break the window because they thought this was their palace. Didn't we all get pissed off about that? Because those glass, the original glass, then we put value, that's sacred. This whole land is sacred. There's actually a tombstone, or a lot of the remains that are now at Mauna Ala actually came from here. That had believed King Kamehameha IV. So this whole place is sacred in Hawaii. Now we're at Kauai Ha'o Church. Kauai Ha'o, let's break it down. Kauai means fresh water. A is of, Ha'o is the name of a person. So Kauai Ha'o talks about the waters of Ha'o. Now Ha'o is referred to a chiefess. In some stories she's referred to as a chief. But this area in Honolulu in the past was very dry, very barren before anything was really built. In stories, it shares that there's this one prominent spring that was reserved for the ali'i, but this chiefess, and some stories this chief Ha'o, would always come down here and bathe, and the term Kauai Ha'o Spring was coined because of that person. But the spring was here before. But the original spring was more down by the intersection. This is a artificially mechanically pumped or whatever spring, but the coral that is used in here is one of the original corals back from Ha'o time. So that's super sacred. We need to protect that. The stones within Kauai Ha'o Church, there's about 14,000 coral blocks, each weighing about 1,000 pounds, brought up to build this church. So that whole process, and it was really backed by Kamehameha III, it's sacred. This is sacred. I'm here at Mauna Ala. Now Mauna Ala to me, and please let me know what your mana'o is. To me, this is probably one of the most sacredest places in all of Hawaii, being the final resting place for a lot of our royal families. All their crypts lay beneath this place. One thing I learned in school is Mauna Ala is one of the only two places in all of Hawaii that only raises the Hawaiian flag. Now please correct me if I'm wrong again. Let's start the education. The only two places is Iolani Palace, and since I showed you, I'm jumping in my car before I get soaked. But there are two places, Iolani Palace and Mauna Ala are the only two places that. So to what I remember is that the United States has not as much jurisdiction, some crazy, I don't know how government works, but they don't have jurisdiction as they do throughout the rest of Hawaii. So please educate us, educate me more about that. I want to know more. But to let you know, so this is one of the final resting places for majority of the Hawaiian ali'i. Mauna Ala, very, very sacred. So in more current development that's going on, and Kailua is a perfect example. When they demolish things and uncover and they find out that there's remains and bones under what they demolished, the council will do their thing, and what they do is they put them all into little burial things like this around town. So right now I'm at Target in Kailua, and after they redid all this, after Daiei, they broke down everything, they built this new place, they did a whole new shopping intersection just for Target and everything. They all moved all the remains that they found and all the iwi into different enclosements like this throughout town. And to me, I mean, that isn't that treated sacred. We create these spaces for that sacred remains to be put into. That way we can continue to develop and do all this economic development that is muchly needed at the same time. So finding a balance between then and now. But in my perspective, this is too close. It's too sacred to be put right next to a parking stall or right next to a bus stop. It should be more sacred than that, but these rocks are sacred. Now we're here at Na Pohaku Hauvahine, translates to the stones of Hauvahine in Kailua. Hauvahine in Mo'olelo in Hawaiian stories is a mo'o, and as talked about yesterday, they're lizards or they're protectors of bodies of water. And Kawai Nui is behind me, which is a freshwater pond once in history, now is a marsh. But Kawai Nui, Hauvahine, Na Pohaku Hauvahine, these are rocks, and there's really big rocks on the top, but there's a couple making lovey-dovey, and I'm gonna let them go. So we're gonna have Kawai Nui in the background. But this was kind of like her home, and in history or in stories it said that when Hauvahine is present, all the uki grass and the hala leaves in the pond would turn yellowish gold, and when she would leave and ha'alele to go on her travels, it would turn back to green. So that's just mo'olelo. That goes along with the fact that Kawai Nui was famous for producing a fish named O'opu ku'ia, which is a fat mudfish. And it is said in Hawaiian stories that Hawaiians would get together, hold hands, and dance in the mud because the fish would cling and go and cluster around their feet. So sacredness, it's sacred. So now we're here still in Kailua at a place we know today as the Bluffs. Traditionally this place is called, I believe, Kalua o Pele, and it was one of the homes of Pele during her travels throughout the Hawaiian Islands. But I'm sitting here in a residential area because when I turn the camera, then there's Olomana, and he stands majestically. Beautiful mountain, and it is very sacred. You know, the story it holds, Olomana, there's many stories, but Olomana is a feared warrior in his time, where even the chief during that time was feared of him. And in stories it says he's like 13 yards, what is that, like 39 feet or something like that in height, so that's ridiculous. And but anyway, the mountain is sacred, the stories it holds is sacred. But one thing I just want to put out there is a lot of people today, especially in the hiking community, they create names for all these hiking places. Now hiking is a big thing throughout the islands. Apparently, the Olomana is called Three Peaks, and that's the name that's getting blasted all over the internet. I just want to say, if you're in the hiking community, I urge you and recommend to go find out what the traditional names are of the places you're traveling, because Three Peaks, actually that's wrong. It's called Olomana, and it's sacred. So we're here at Ka'ohao. You're probably like, wait, isn't that Lanikai? No, it's not Lanikai. The name of this place is Ka'ohao. Lanikai is a made-up name, just recently more modern, that's supposed to represent the heavenly sea, because the world knows this place as being so beautiful and majestic, because of course it is. But did you know this place is sacred? In Hawaiian stories, they're menehune, and menehune are these little people from the mountains, and then they're known for not really completing anything, because they're very just like flustered, and they work in a pack of people, and they kind of banter and bicker, but they work, and they don't really do the best quality. So it is said in stories that the reef around Mokuluas, which these two worldwide known islands are, they never completed it. So if you actually know, the reef in here is kind of like halfway up to the ocean, from the top of the surface to the bottom of the ocean. And actually in the environment, what it does is it protects the beach. There's no big waves that come in here, so it protects it. So that itself, that is sacred. We need that kind of reef. Hopefully you enjoyed the various sites that we were able to show you on this episode here on the island of Oʻahu. Now there's so much more, and there's so much more reasons why each place is considered sacred. So we invite you, please go on and find out more. Share with us, share with your friends and family. All I can do is create ripple effects around our communities that will continue the education of different sites here on Oʻahu, that will only build our connection to this place we all call home even more stronger and more connected. So all for the better. We invite you to check out all our past episodes at aloha.authentic.org. If you have any comments or suggestions, please email me at kamakapili@aloha.authentic.org. And don't forget to share your aloha today. And see you next month on Aloha Authentic. Ahui ho.